Welcome to Never Buy the Book podcast. This is your host, Kelly Schols. At 24, I was dead broke and a full-blown alcoholic. By age 40, I was completely debt-free and a multimillionaire. Now I share my secrets to success and transformation with audiences around the world as an author, speaker, and success mentor, and of course, your podcast host. Each Never Buy the Book podcast features a guest who has overcome obstacles to live a life of wealth and fulfillment. Today, I'm honored to interview my good friend and mentor, Kenny Chapman. Kenny and I met about 10 years ago when I saw him speak on stage in front of a huge audience. What hit me like a bolt of lightning was how similar Kenny's life and I were. At that moment, I knew we'd become lifelong friends. Kenny shares his story with the world to help teach, coach, and educate people on how to become the best version of themselves. I've learned a lot from this man, and I know you will too. Let me take a moment to read some of Kenny's bio. Kenny Chapman is an award-winning professional speaker, author, and expert on leadership and change. He is an entrepreneur at heart, having built and led multiple successful companies. Most recently, the Blue Collar Success Group, which helps business leaders in the in-home service industries run industry-leading companies. Kenny is formerly trained speaker and has toured with motivational guru Les Brown and spoken internationally, sharing his uplifting, action-oriented message of professional and personal development. He recently authored The 6 Dimensions of Change 2.0 as an updated version of his first book to incorporate solutions to challenges faced by today's leaders. Kenny also created and hosts the podcast Leadership in a Nutshell, an innovation series of shorter podcasts devoted to helping leaders reach their potential and thrive regardless of circumstances. Kenny's been featured on many podcasts and TV shows. His mission is to positively impact as many people as possible. So welcome, brother.
Dang, that was a lot. Thank you. I appreciate that. You need water already. We're just getting rolling here, brother.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's so great to be here with you. I'm so excited to have this time with you and your listeners, your followers. So thank you, everybody. Put on your seatbelt. We don't know where we're going exactly. We've got intention, but we're going to see where this conversation is meant to go today. That's kind of where my heart's at, is where it's supposed to go. It's going to go, I think.
Same here. And, you know, you and I have talked a lot. We've become what we call brothers from another mother. Mm-hmm. You've helped me tremendously. And I'm just honored and excited to be able to have the audience hear your story. And through your story is what helped me. So I'm excited about that.
Very cool. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for the opportunity. And it is, like you said, I mean, we have so many things in common, and it's one of those things where, you know, you've got a great relationship when you're able to mentor each other and coach each other. And we met because I was on a stage, and then we ended up, we've done business together. We've owned companies together. We've coached together. We've trained together. We've done a lot of things. And now today we get to do this together. So life's pretty darn special. That's right.
Well, and you've been a big influence in my life. I just did a webinar a couple hours ago called Mentor Your Successor. And it was based on my mentor, Steve Olson, that I had, you know, in the plumbing and HVAC industry. Nice. And since getting out of that, you know, and selling and stuff and getting into the speaking and coaching and writing my book, you've become a mentor to me. And I truly appreciate that. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go back in time. I'd like to go back and tell your story, where you came from, how you became the person you are to be able to help people like me. I know your mission is to help as many people as possible, but, you know, I know you have a story. I've heard it, and I'd really love for my audience to hear it. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So we had a little glitch. You got me?
Yeah, we got you.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I don't know how far you want to go back. Obviously, there's a lot of different things going on, but I grew up as many of us did with different circumstance than sometimes you might choose, split family. My parents were married 11 times between them, and my father's been gone for 30 something years. I'm dad 7, mom 4. And my sister and I were kind of, figuring things out. And then from there I kind of ended up being the troubled kid. That I'll put that in kind of air quotes, that basically when your parents were telling you, hey, you might not want to go hang out with that kid on the playground, they were talking about Kenny Chapman as probably being that kid. And so through that and School of Hard Knocks and different things, I really kind of operated from a survival mode in my life. And with all the studies in the world today, with everything that we now know about the human brain, is I created very, very strong conditioning around survival, and the flight or fight mode in the subconscious was very much alive and well into my late 40s even. And so I think it's important that as we kind of kick off stories, we just realize that, I've got the sob story, the challenge to overcoming obstacles. Obviously, this podcast is completely about this. Your book, Never by the Book, is about, the path that you took. And, so we can kind of dive in wherever you want. I didn't get through college. I got a baseball ride and, partied my way out of school and got kicked out in a semester. And then I started following my father's path, who was an outlaw biker. And I started selling drugs and I got in trouble and I went to jail for a minute. And then I just had what I call the I've had it moment. And I was on a jail cell at 19, or on the floor of a jail cell at 19 years old in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. And I just said, I've had it. And Les Brown, when you mentioned, I got to tour with Les for a while, and Les is a huge mentor of mine, a phenomenal man. And, I just had that. I've had it. And the thing that I want all of our followers and listeners and anybody watching this live today to remember is that sometimes your I've had it moment doesn't mean I've had it and that means I've got it figured out. What it means is I've had it with what's going on today, with where I'm at in my life today. And I had no idea that I would ever have an opportunity to be here, to meet incredible people like you, to fall in love with the lovely Christy many, many years later, and a couple of marriages later for myself. I never would have imagined those things in my wildest dreams, but it takes the I've had it moment to draw the line in the sand and say, I am not going to do this. I'm not my father. I don't have to have my father's path. I love him. I appreciate everything that he created for me. He's been gone many years now, but he created an opportunity for me to choose myself. And many of us don't take that time to wake up. And so I was in a challenging spot and went, I've had it. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I joined the United States Army. And that was really when my life began turning around. I was a punk kid. I needed discipline. And the military gave me that. I chose the right platform for what I was looking for, brother. Let's say it like that.
Did you choose it or was it chosen for you?
Well, and it's funny because I went through a phase in my life where I felt guilty when people would say, many of us, myself included, when I see veterans, when I see police, especially with the disaster going on in the world right now, when I see public servants, I thank them for their service. And if I meet a veteran, I say, thanks for your service. And I was uncomfortable with that for a while, bro, because people go, thanks for your service. I'm like, I was choosing this or jail. This wasn't exactly a hey, I'm going to go be patriotic and I'm going to go save the world. It was like, how can I save myself? Here's a platform, right? And so you're right. It was definitely it was a choice that I made. And as we fast forward too, I want everybody to catch that as well. So I made the decision, and everything begins with the decision, but nothing happens until the action's taken, right? And so the decision was I was going to fix my life, and the platform was I'm going to go in the Army. But many soldiers didn't make it through boot camp. Many people quit. Many people gave up. Many people went home, and they had the same drill instructors that I had. They had the same platform. They had the same environment. They had the same weather. But I had a desire to change at a deeper level than some of those soldiers that didn't make it through. And it's not that I'm better or different. It's just that my circumstance had more call to action than others. And wherever you are today, as you're overcoming obstacles, and we have them, Kelly and I both have them as we're sit here today, you're never going to eliminate the obstacles. The goal is to become the person that deals and understands, and you can shorten the curve on the change cycle.
Yeah. And I mean, we were talking about it just a couple of weeks ago about challenges and obstacles that we deal with, and it's facing them, acknowledging them, and moving forward is what makes the difference.
100%. It's one of those, I believe in the concept that, really resistance and challenge and what the world would call problems. I use the word problem to relate to people, but I don't believe in problems. I don't believe the pandemic is a problem. I don't believe the economy is a problem. I don't believe at the time we're recording this, there's an election on the horizon. I don't believe that's a problem. And people are going, wait a minute, Kenny, there's been hundreds of thousands of people have died and different things have happened and this and that. I'm not trying to minimize anything there, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm trying to do is help people realize that true pain comes from resisting reality. And reality is a perception play. And so the fact of the matter is, I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose the family I was born into. I would now. I would definitely go back and choose my exact situation. And I think that there's many years in my life I wouldn't have said that. But because I believe in the evolution of the human spirit, in the evolution of the mind, body, and spirit together, I don't believe there's problems. I only believe that there's situations and opportunities for us to learn. 2020, many people are trying to write it off. People want to jump forward to 2021. There's a lot of lessons still here. There's a lot of opportunity for us to learn. You and I'm a freedom guy. I value freedom more than anything else in my life. And I thought, if I've got income and I've got self-managing companies, I've got freedom. And all of a sudden the world said, nope, you can't leave the country. And I went, wait a minute, it's not what I signed up for. And I got to learn some things that I took for granted again. I had an opportunity to find new gratitude. I got the opportunity to travel around the United States again more, where a real trip for me, I had to leave the country. Now, all of a sudden, I'm like, what? There's still amazing things here. And so please understand, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not minimizing any change, any problem, any catastrophe. I mean, my father was murdered 6 days after I turned 21. I lost my last stepfather at 62 years old to early onset dementia. I've had all kinds of trauma, pain, challenge, financial, health, addiction, all kinds of issues in my life. And every single one of those, either I brought it in to learn something, or the universe had served it up on a platter for Kenny Chapman to learn a lesson. That's how I feel.
And that's the thing, there's really no mistakes. There's only lessons, right?
I agree. I believe you're either winning or you're learning. I really believe that. One of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, taught me that concept many years ago. I'm sure Dan didn't come up with it himself, but it really resonated as you know, sometimes you got to be at the right time when you hear something. And for whatever reason, when Dan said that to me, I went, well, I'm a winner and I want to win, but I came from a thought of I'm either winning or I'm losing in the process, or people talk about failing forward and different. I don't believe in that. I believe you get a result. You either got the result you wanted or you didn't. And if you didn't, then what is the gold? What is the win in the process? What is the win in the failure that the world calls it? What's the win in the challenge? I had a failed program happen about 6 months ago. People are like, well, Kenny, you're doing this and this. Heck no, man. I'm putting myself out there. If I'm not failing, then I'm not doing anything. And I'm okay with that.
Well, you and I have talked a lot about defining moments too. And to me, defining moments are those failures, are those obstacles, are those heartaches. I mean, when I look at my life, my defining moments, start from, when I was a kid, when I quit drinking at 24 years old, and then, buying out my partner, having the union issues, that, those are all defining moments. And then when my wife passed away, and I mean, the union issues and my wife passing away, if those things wouldn't have happened, I never would have met you.
Mm-hmm.
And never would have
Absolutely.
become, the friend and had you as a mentor, and been able to work together and partner together and be friends and learn from you.
Well, and that's where I think everybody on the line, you want to remember that and look back, because we all want, it's okay to what you want. And I want that for you. Everybody, just start telling yourself it's okay. Guess what? I want what I want, and that's okay. Where you don't have to have a condition from the world that, like, well, I want that because, or I want to have a nice dinner, but there's people starving in other parts of the country. I have empathy for that. The best way I can help that is to be the best version of myself I can be and continue to move forward. So the flip side of what Kelly just said, everybody, is the fact that he wouldn't have become the person he was if he wouldn't have had those defining moments. And if I wouldn't have gotten up on that jail cell floor and said, hey, I got to change my path, I would not have been on the stage I was on at the time that we met. So both of us had to have those challenging experiences come to get to the place to where we go, hey, wait a minute. Now we get to play. Now, have we had challenges since we met? 100%. Will there be challenges next week? Absolutely. And that's where I think the mind shift begins to come, ladies and gentlemen. When you stop going, man, I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to be in pain. One of my buddies and mentors, Joe Polish, has a poster. You've been there many times at his office at Genius Network. And it says, like, the life of an entrepreneur. For anybody on the line, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. It's like the game of life. And it's like, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. And then sweet, I win. And then, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. And it's like, hey, people go, well, Kenny, you're aiming for the curb. You're looking at all the challenges and all those. How about if we start reframing? What if we start reprogramming what we're looking for in the world and go, hey, if it didn't go the way I want, what's the lesson? And that means it can be good. And I believe I can live with ease, joy, and glory in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a 60-year life event where we've got economy, we've got a pandemic, we've got a social uprising like we've never, ever experienced. And yet I can remain at peace. I can do the best I can to lead my team, my family, my peers, and my friends. I think that's okay.
That is okay. And, we talk about momentum. You talk about, wanting to go to the next level, wanting to become the better person, wanting to strive for more. There's nothing wrong with striving for more.
No,
there's nothing wrong with wanting to be better. There's nothing wrong with wanting to improve. And so many people are afraid to look in the mirror and say, what do I need to do to change, to improve, to keep that momentum going?
Absolutely. And I think we can't talk about that without talking about confidence and talking about self-worth. Because when we catch ourselves and we say, oh, I've got enough. See, the subconscious is just simply runs a program. And what happens is that when we start justifying, when we start minimizing, when we start masking, when we start pushing down the person that we really want to become, what we want to really have in life, the relationships that you want, the financial situation that you want, the health that you want. Talk about mentorship. Look at how you've impacted me from a health standpoint. And as Kelly is a runner and he cares about his health, and way back when he was my age, he I had to go there. But so Kelly may or may not be a couple of years older than me, but I mean, when you had your heart situation and going through that, and you went through that with ease, joy, and glory, and people are like, dude, you might not make it. We recorded a video of it that you use in your keynote speaking now. Like, literally, think about that. To have the wherewithal to go, you know what? We were talking about, you're like, I'm thinking about recording it. What do you think? I'm like, yes, there's going to be gold there. Make sure. And now we've used it at one of your biggest keynotes ever, where I had the pleasure of introducing you to be able to go, here's the story, here's what it is. And so my point, ladies and gentlemen, is momentum cuts both ways. And that's one thing we forget. Is we're taught and we think about momentum as like, oh, momentum's when I get on the scale and I lost 3 more pounds this week. Momentum's when I got a raise at my job and I make $2 more an hour. Momentum's when I've had my 4th great date with the same human being. All those things, we just go to that's momentum. But what we sometimes forget is momentum cuts the other way, and generally we call it a downward spiral. And there's really not a lot of middle ground in life. You're either improving and growing, or you're retracting and you're kind of getting left behind in the world, in my opinion. And so I think that as we look at momentum and we look at what we're asking for, I would challenge each of you to do the work on your own confidence, on your own self-worth. I grew up wearing secondhand clothes, very challenged self-worth standpoint. I was the fat kid that got picked on. I was the last one on the playground to get picked for the team. All those, and I had no idea what that did to me internally. And when I started making some actual money in the world, I quickly sabotaged it. I quickly created it as a problem so I could have a problem to solve. See, our subconscious is simply there to solve problems. Our mind is the number one thing that our mind does is it keeps us alive. And many of you on the line haven't thought one time since Kelly and I started talking about your breathing. And yet it's happening. And your mind is actually doing it behind the scenes, and it's doing a lot of things behind the scenes that you're not aware of and you're not paying attention to. And it's making relationship decisions, it's making financial choices, and it's doing it based on who you think you are. And if you want to really change that outcome, start looking to solve a better problem. It's one of the reasons that Kelly and I talk about problems as gifts. Ultimately, they're opportunities, they're gifts, because if you really want a chance to up-level your game, you will find a problem to solve. And what happens when we get into goal setting to create momentum, one of the challenges that people that do what you and I do is we see people that kind of just, I'm gonna solve this. Let's say I need to make an extra $5,000 a year to solve my economic. If you're gonna go with your financial teaching, and I need to get my emergency fund, right? So then I need to up level my finances to get my emergency fund. But in your bigger program of financial independence that you teach, that's one rung in the ladder. That's one step in the process. But if we don't have the confidence to really decide who we want to become as a financial steward in our lives, then I'm just going to solve that problem. And I'm going to get my emergency fund, and I will have something happen in my life that will take that emergency fund because now I need another problem to solve. So my goal for you, ladies and gentlemen, is to go find some bigger problems to solve. And it sounds kind of crazy when we put it like that. So maybe rather than what's the problem that you want to solve, who's the person that you want to become? I think Tony Robbins says it best. I don't agree with everything Tony says or does, but one of the things I do agree with is that when he says, people go, man, it must be amazing to be a Zuckerberg or a Bezos, or man, I want to be a billionaire. And Tony says, no, you don't. And I would say that about a lot of you that say you want to be millionaires. No, you don't. Well, why? What do you mean, Kenny? Kelly, of course I want to be a millionaire. Kelly teaches financial stewardship. He teaches financial coaching. Of course you don't really want to be a millionaire. Why? Because there's some problems and there's some shit that comes along with being a millionaire. And that's some of the people go, well, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with firing somebody. I don't want to deal with a team member challenge. I don't want to deal with a lawsuit in your situation, Kelly, where you've been sued. You've had death. You've had pain. You've had challenge. But people go, I want a Kelly Scholes life. Do you? Or do you want Kelly Scholes money? Let's get clear about one of the two, right?
Right. I love the story you tell. And you've done it in many trainings I've been at, the story you tell about a friend of yours that wanted to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, go ahead and tell that story.
Yeah. So, basically I do it in the context, and I'll share with you here today that I'm a big Stephen Covey fan. The late, great Stephen Covey he wrote some amazing work, and, he teaches a concept, be, do, have. And I believe the fourth part of that, a friend of mine, a mentor, Greg Nemi, taught me that it's be, do, have, and then give. And that's one of the reasons Kelly and I are on with you today, is just to give back, because the world's been so good to us based on the decisions that we've made. And so I had my buddy Dave come to me, and he's like, Kenny, I really want to have a house. And I said, okay, cool. What do you want? He's like, it doesn't have to be a big house. It doesn't have to be up on the Redlands where you live, but I want to have a house. And I said, Dave, let me ask you a question. Do you want to have a house, or do you want to be a homeowner? And he's like, well, I don't kind of like, what do you mean? Like many of you on the line, you're like, same thing. What are you talking about? Now he's getting weird on us, you know? And it's like, well, here, do these things, go away, do the some financial homework, stop eating at Taco Bell for lunch, do these things. Okay, cool. Come back in 30 days. And so a couple of teaching points of the story. One, those of you on the line, do you think that he came back in 30 days? And if we were in a room together, you go, no, he didn't. You're right. He didn't. It was about 3 months, 4 months later, he came back. Kenny, I want to have a house. I made the decision. I'm really ready. I want to have a house. Well, Dave, do you really want to have a house, or do you want to be a homeowner? And he kind of, again, what are you talking about? Well, let me see your check-in. Let me see the work that you did. Oh, well, okay, you got to do this. You got to keep doing this. You got to work on this, whatever. He goes away 6, 8 months later. He comes back. Kenny, want to have a house? I asked him the same question. Dave, it's time to call the ball. Do you want to have a house, or do you want to be a homeowner? And he said, I don't get it. What are you trying to say? I said, because until you decide that you want to be a homeowner, then and only then will you actually do what's necessary in order to have a house. And yet we flip it upside down, ladies and gentlemen, and we go, I want to have. And as soon as I have a house, then I'm going to do certain things with my money. I'll be a better steward of it, and then I'm going to be, and fill in the blank, usually happy. I'm going to be healthy. Well, if I just had more time. How many on the line got a little more time since the pandemic hit? Guess what? All of us all of a sudden went, oh, I went from doing 8 live events a year to, count them, 0, and went, all those airplanes, all those hotels, all that time. Wait a minute. And guess what? You see it too. Everybody on the line, you've got friends. If you're not in the coaching space, we see it in clients. You see it in friends. There are people that have gotten in incredible shape. Why? Because of the pandemic. There are people that have gained the 30 pounds. Why? Because of the pandemic. And at the end of the day, it's not about the pandemic. It's not about the time. It's about the person that you want to be. And other people have used the platform and went, now's the opportunity for me to become this person. Others are still waiting on the sideline, going, well, you know what? After November, I'll make a decision, and then I'll be. And after November, half of America is either going to be pissed off or super happy, and they're going to have something to blame, or they're going to have a reason to get off the couch and go do something. But nothing really changes because it's up to you to go create your results. Who do you want to be, ladies and gentlemen? Then you'll do what you want to do, what's necessary, what you must do in order to have the life of your dreams.
And that's it, is finding the life of your dreams. You know, I was reading your book, and, you know, I've read all your books. I've done all your stuff. You and I have talked about it at length. But I just read your new book, The 6 Dimensions of Change 2.0. And in there was something that really resonated with me. And I made it my life's mission to empower people like you to turn dreams into reality. Something I want people to understand and know is you've made that your life's mission, but I know how much you've spent on your self-education. And I don't think people realize that, you know, you can have and do anything you want, but it takes time and effort too.
It does. And I think it's very important. And thank you for that point of, you know, here's the reality. It's going to be work, ladies and gentlemen. We're not here to sell you a get rich quick scheme. We're not here to sell you the do a cleanse and lose all this weight. Real success takes real work. But the challenge that I give you is you're working anyway. You're getting up and doing something with your day now. So if there's that little thing inside of you right now, if you play video games all day, it's in the pit of your stomach. If you're sitting around smoking dope all day like the old Kenny used to do, if I was looking out the window of my house in Lake Havasu, seeing if the cops are sitting on it because we were selling so many drugs, there's the pit in my stomach. But guess what? I was doing something. And quite honestly, I was pretty good at it. If my dad taught me one thing, it was like, be at the top of your game, whatever you're going to do. So I went, I better get good at something that's legal, right? And so, but at the end of the day, I'm a passionate guy. I'm going to play full out. If there's anything, ask anybody that works with me, anybody that's around me. If there's something I can't stand, it's mediocrity. I don't love average. And I don't mean the world's average. I mean my average. I mean Kelly's average. I mean your average as you listen to this. Everybody's average is different. We all come from different incomes, different religious beliefs, different walks of life, different location, different geography. But when you look at the person that has what you want, sometimes we forget that they went through hell to get there. And if we all walked around with a transparent billboard with the scroll of streaming stuff that goes through, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where you don't realize how many times you get kicked in the gut. You don't realize how many times you fail in the world's eyes, which takes even more self-confidence when the world says you're failed again. Why are you going to try and do that? You're not that type of person. See, we create these rules for relationships too. And it comes from peer groups and who we're around. And one of the reasons that Kelly and I became so close so fast is one, based on previous trauma that we both had in our lives, and two, based on the type of people that we were committed to becoming. Let me be clear, committed to becoming. We didn't meet each other and Kelly said, you know, dude, I like your story. I like your book. I like what you're doing. I'm thinking about maybe becoming a better adjusted human being. I'm thinking about becoming financially independent. I'm thinking about, there's none of that. There's a commitment, and that scares some of you. Why? Because you're afraid that you won't stay committed. And get perfection out of your head. It's about more often than not. It's okay to make quote mistakes. It's okay to step back. I coach all the time on the fact that it's more often than not. When you said, oh, I'm going to do the workout. I'm going to do I hit the pandemic, the gym's closed. So I'm a yoga guy. I do some form of yoga every day. Every day. Now, when I say some form, that could be 10 minutes of stretching on my mat. Let's be clear. It's not, I'm going to do 90 minutes of a guided class every single day. Why? Because I'll fail. And I don't like to fail in the world's eyes. I like to succeed. So if I say more often than not, I'm going to do a full-blown guided class. But on some level, I'm going to do it better. More often than not, I'm going to hit my personal budget with my money. More often than not, I'm going to get my gumption up to ask out the person that I want. More often than not, I'm going to do something special for my spouse. It's more often than not is really where the race is won. But you're right. It's all about really that commitment. And we have gone through a lot. And I don't know another one of my peers that spends as much as I do on coaching and training for myself. We were talking before we got on today. I had a coaching session today with my coach before I'm on here with you guys. Why? Because Kenny's still really screwed up. That's why. I mean, you know, I say that jokingly because I'm like, you know, it's why do you still have coaching? I remember when I met the lovely Christy, I was nervous when she came into I was living in a rental because I was going through a transition in my life. And I saw her looking at my bookshelf, and Christy's really smart, really well read. And I freaked out and I got a bunch of anxiety, and I went, oh my God. And so we had one of our first kind of heart to hearts. And I went, so I saw you looking at my bookshelf. What do you think? And she's like, well, I'm very interested. And I'm like, oh man, it was a good run for a couple of dates. Why? Everything was self-help. Everything on there was not a novel on that thing, baby. It's all about how you deal with a jacked up individual that you are. Sign me up, give me a book to read about that. Right. And so, but we think that we hit this place, and it's like, you know, hopefully I'm not as screwed up as I used to be, but maybe I am. But the point is, to get to your point, Kelly, I will continue to invest in myself because, one, I'm a lifelong learner. I don't have a degree. I don't have letters behind my name, but I'm a lifelong learner, and I learn from other people. And I would encourage you all on the line to be mindful of what's the mirror. There's a reason that the top athletes, the top performers, everybody at top of their game in the world has coaches, because coaches have a different perspective. And it's important to do that.
Well, the other thing is, you know, we've talked a lot about being stuck in the gap. And just, what was it? 3 weeks ago, you and I were talking.
Yep.
And you're like, all right, what's going on, brother?
Yep.
I mean, you could tell. And I'm like, I'm stuck. So you had to mirror back and say, stuck why? And we started talking, and you're like, well, wait a minute. You wrote a book, you've started a podcast, You've done all this stuff, and sometimes it takes that coaching and somebody else to say, wait a minute, yeah, you may be stuck, but you got to look at what you've done too. Look at it, but then keep going forward.
Right. And stuck is like failure to me too. So what we label as stuck sometimes is the universe's take a pause. There's a reason that we have timeout in sports games. There's a reason where we go, hang on, everybody huddle up. Let's talk about this. Let's think about what our next move's going to be. As driven entrepreneurs, we don't bake those in usually. I'm a big fan of free days. I'm a big fan of taking personal free time. Now, it took me many, many years to get there because I'm a driver. I'm going to go. And that conversation you and I were having, you're a driver. You're ready for what's next. It's like, okay, podcast, check. Okay, never buy the book, check. Okay, coaching, training. Okay, check. Keynote, check. Okay, well, why don't I buy a house and remodel it in the middle of all that too? Check. Okay, then what? And it's like, well, hang on, because we're always looking for that, where sometimes the universe needs to take a step back and go, hey, if you're not going to take a pause, we're going to create one for you, because you need to think. One of my mentors, Keith Cunningham, the gentleman that Kiyosaki wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad about, two different people. There was actually two rich dads that Kiyosaki wrote about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And Keith Cunningham taught me a couple powerful concepts. And one of those is thinking time. Mm-hmm. And the most successful people in the world will build in thinking time. I'm a fan of meditation, where I'm trying not to think, but then also that's opening space for my subconscious to come in and actually be as a partner of mine. And so I think it's important that when we have a pause, when we have a break, when we have a feeling of being stuck, like you said, defining moments, sometimes being stuck is a really good thing when we look back at it, because it's a moment of reflection. Sometimes we avoid paying a dumb tax, as Keith talks about, that we might not have paid if we take a moment and go, if I'm feeling resistance, what is it? Is it the marketplace that, the market votes with its checkbook? So is it a market thing? Is it an internal thing? Is there something else I need to learn? Is there somebody else I need to engage or ask about this? Is there another level I need to become? However that looks, how do I show up at that level? And sometimes it takes us getting stuck in order to have, now I'm stuck. Now my brain's got a problem to solve. I got to get unstuck. So what's it going to take to do that? Right. Love it, bro. Love it.
Have some more dumb tax. That'll help get it right.
Yeah. Imagine that.
We've had plenty of dumb tax, haven't we?
Whew, that's what everybody gets jammed up about, financial taxes. And it's like, well, I pay whatever the government requires of me if I can eliminate my own dumb taxes that I spend throughout the course of my life, for sure. Love it.
Well, and the dumb tax just become another learning lesson.
Absolutely. 100%.
So you were talking about your meditation. Let's talk some more about meditation and free time. I know, you've made a big transformation even yourself in the last, 10 years.
Yeah.
I have as well. I mean, I'm a completely different person now than I was 8 years ago.
Absolutely.
And I know, you and I have watched each other and helped each other with transformations over the last 8-10 years.
Yes, tremendously.
And I know the last 2 years, really, you've really gone deep. I know your meditation and that. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, you and Marcus, one of my previous life coaches and another business partner of mine from a previous company. You guys really were the ones that started shining the light on, really the importance of self-care. And meditation, though I've been interested in it for a long time, and though I knew that a lot of people that were quote unquote, well-adjusted it seemed to work for them, I couldn't embrace it. I just couldn't get there. And I always was, as I said, the subconscious mind is a justifier, and I would justify it. I'm not wired like that. These yoga people, they don't have a busy business. They don't have a bunch of team members. They don't have whatever it is. Right. And so I really struggled with that for a long time. And I remember doing workouts in the upstairs of your old house, when I would come on site at your company, and we'd be up there in the evening time. And this guy works out at night. Who can work out at night? Like, literally, I mean, if that doesn't happen first thing in the morning, how's it going to happen? And here's Kelly Schols getting home from work going, all right, brother, get changed. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? And so, but that started teaching me the importance of self-care at another level. And so then, as we do, like you said, as we kind of fast forward, I really got a lot of areas in my life under control. And one of the ones that I had not gotten under control was total self-care. And so within the last couple of years, I don't talk big on dates. I'm not a big date guy when it comes to certain life changes like this, but I completely gave up drugs and alcohol in the last couple of years, and I became sober. And so many of you on the line, this might be the first time that you've heard that from me. And I did write about it in the 6 Dimensions of Change 2.0. One of the reasons that I wrote that book, because I was a different person now. And so when I made those changes, I really made self-care a number one priority for me. And I was a producer. I was getting a lot done in the world, and I was making a lot of changes and a lot of positive influence and a lot of helping a lot of people, but I was still battling some demons that I hadn't dealt with. And addiction's not about the addiction, and people who have addictions are not bad people. I believe that the conversation around addiction needs to change. I believe that we need to look at the pain and the suffering. And a lot of times, even for alcoholics or drug users, recovery is a big thing. And one of the things that a coach that I had helped me with is really stopping drinking or stopping using drugs is only 10% of recovery. It's 100% when you're drinking. If you're an alcoholic and you're drinking, then like 100% of getting sober, if you will, is stopping drinking. Once you do that, however, it's only about 10% of actual recovery, because now we start diving into the real crap that's going on and why you were continuing to mask and squash and deal with guilt, shame, and pain in different ways, shapes, or forms. And so over the last few years, I've really embraced self-care at a different, deeper level. And through that, I really started working on rituals, really started diving into how I show up at the best of myself. I've always been a giver. To your mention that I write about in my book, like I want other people's lives to be better because I'm on the planet. And I executed that at the highest level I knew possible, but I was leaving Kenny Chapman behind. I took on partners. I took on different situations that I shouldn't have. And I say that very cautiously because I'm really grateful that I did. Every experience that I entered did happen for a reason. And so what I mean by that is that I was really in a process of just masking and finding like what is going to be this key. I've done so many other areas of my life effectively. And until I said Kenny Chapman is worth taking care of at the highest level. And I said earlier on the line, ladies and gentlemen, I value freedom more than anything else in my life. I value freedom. I want to do what I want, the way that I want, with who that I want, when I want, period. And if you don't like that, then I'm sorry. I probably won't do it with you. but that's what some people call that selfish. I call that selfless, because if I'm creating a life that I want to live, desire, and engage in, then I'm going to show up better, and I'm going to be a better steward of humanity in that way. And so I tried to help everybody else in the world to fill a void in myself. And after doing it for 20 some years, I finally just woke up and went, I guess that's not going to do it. I guess I got to deal with this guy right here. And at that moment in time, I made a decision that I was going to make self-care the number one priority in my life. And I've literally meditated every single day since I made that choice. And it's not a thing like I have zero concern about ever drinking or ever smoking or anything else again in my life. I to have a different belief system around a lot of that than traditional conversations. However, that being said, what I do know is that as long as I stick with my self-care rituals, I will never have any negative tendencies in my life of what I used to use to destroy myself because of the pain. And it's okay to love yourself, ladies and gentlemen, and it's okay to take care of yourself, and it's okay to make you a priority. And what happens is, as soon as you do that, I used to make my wife a priority. I used to make my business a priority. I used to make my team a priority, and I would go and go and go, and I would do and do and do, and I would share and share and share, but I was still missing. And as soon as you start going, you know what, it's about you. And so now many of you go, I'm too busy. That's what I said. I'm too busy to meditate. Now, I mean, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. So, or our office is in Phoenix. I live in Scottsdale. If I've got to come down here to the office and I'm doing a 7 a.m. East Coast gig, I've got to get up super early. And if that's going to happen, then that means that I've got to get up extra super early because I am going to meditate first thing every morning. And it's at that level of a priority. It's like food. And so I think it's important, my friends, that finding the right algorithm for you. Hal Elrod wrote a great book called The Miracle Morning. I'm a fan of Hal. I've been at events with Hal. I like his work, but don't be too stringent, because my ritual is my ritual. Kelly's ritual is Kelly's ritual. Everybody on the line today and everybody listening, and I see some great friends on here. It's fantastic to have everybody with us. The reality is that you need to find what works for you. I did that. I tried to. I threw up hiking with this dude, by the way, like in my old hometown where we owned a service business together. He's like, well, just pop some gum in your mouth and let's hit the trail and drink some milk or whatever in the hell I had and I'm up there like stopping and puking and like trying to figure. And I'm like, oh my gosh, his ritual can't be my ritual. But that doesn't mean I'm bad. That doesn't mean I'm substandard. That doesn't mean I'm worse than Kelly. It means I'm different than Kelly. We're brothers from another mother, but we're wired differently. We have different DNA. What matters is that we both honor our own self-care and go, this is what works for me, and this is when I'm the top performer in my world, in my life. And each of you listening and watching right now have the opportunity to do that for yourselves. Meditation is not some mantra out there. Yet there's a lot of apps out there. There's a lot of things you can do and use, and I'm happy to help answer any of those questions. But at the end, it goes back to what Kelly said about commitment. You're either going to do it or not. And if you're not sure, or that's where I was. I don't know. I'll do it a few days. Same thing with journaling. Yeah. If I'm going to journal, well, I'll journal a little bit. It's literally right here. I'm going to journal every single day because I got to get the crazy out of here. You're like, what? I thought maybe I need to journal right now. This dude's crazy. But that's part of it. So rituals, meditation, taking care of yourself, highest level. It's not about extremes. And I'm not saying everybody needs to stop drinking, by the way. I'm not a guy that Kelly has been sober since we met. And he never looked at me sideways for a glass of wine. He never gave me a hard time about a hangover. Well, he might give me a little crap. Maybe he'd run me a little harder. But other than that, it was never he knew I was on my own path in my own time, and I would find my way when it was time.
And you did it your way.
That's right. That's exactly right. As everybody always does. Yep. That's what we forget.
That's what we forget, definitely. So I want to read another insert out of your book. And it's called Change Your Focus. A life lived unconsciously will never allow you to reach your full potential and realize your dreams. You have to start paying attention to what you're really focusing on and why. Because like it or not, your life will become the things you pay attention to and focus on.
Absolutely. You know, I think we've all heard it, whether it was in driver's ed as kids in school or racing school, or you and I've had some fun on some racetracks together. But if you're going to, start sliding out of control, what do they tell you? Don't look here, don't look there. Why? Because the car is going to go where you're looking. And I like that analogy, probably because my dad was a racer as well. And I think it's important to realize how powerful that is. And my friends, it's harder now than ever to protect yourself and your focus, because now we live in a world where, not just you don't get home and turn on the TV and there's 3 channels or 10 channels. What happens now is we have social media that gets filtered before it even gets to you. So it's for you to have an objective opinion. You don't just change the channel. Your own news feed on a lot of your social platforms are being filtered before you even see it, based on your friends, based on what you've clicked on in the past, based on certain things. So it's incredibly hard to maintain a very objective point of view. It's one of the reasons I try to look at people I don't agree with. I dig into it. I want to understand, because they're not wrong and I'm right. It's just that we have different views. And why is that? I want to understand that part. And I think that, when I write about that in the book, if you're unconscious, you're getting unconscious results, but you're getting results. And most of the time, if we're getting unconscious results, we're not getting the results that we truly want, desire, and deserve. And when we stop and go, wait a minute, that's why it's so important when you claim that it's okay to want what you want. It's okay to be happy, healthy, wealthy, wise. Those things are 100% within your grasp and okay. And if you want to beat yourself up, if you want to say, well, there's enough, it's like, I like the old analogy of, well, people say, money can't buy happiness. Well, I get that, but last time I checked, poor doesn't buy anything. Right. And so I understand that. And we know that. We know a lot of rich, miserable people. But guess what? The reason I bring that up is because many of you on the line are justifying not being rich because you know a rich, miserable person. Think about that. Let that land for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Uncle Johnny, he's always a mess. He drinks too much, and it's because he's a business guy. It's because he runs a bunch of money. Oh, Aunt Jane, she's always running around and going to these different things. Yeah, well, I don't want to be like her. And it must be that rich people are bad, and you're giving yourself a reason to get off the hook rather than going, it has nothing, literally, it has nothing to do with income. If you're a miserable person, you're going to be a miserable poor person, or you're going to be a miserable rich person, but the universe generally won't align enough for most of you to become miserable rich people. You got to be really lucky to become a miserable rich person. And maybe it's not lucky. And the other thing is, how long do they stay? It's that old, well, am I rich because I'm happy, or am I happy and therefore I'm going to become rich? I believe the happiness comes first.
Yeah, happiness got to come first.
100%.
There are a lot of miserable rich people out there, but you know what? There's a lot of miserable poor people too.
There are, and the thing is, rich people are, like I said, in life and in addiction and different challenges. All we're doing is using different environments and platforms to fill voids. When you meet a miserable rich person, it's simply because they've used money as their way to try to fill a void, and then they realize it's not a void. For me, I use drugs and alcohol to try to fill a void. And when I finally went, okay, I guess that void's not going to get filled. It took me a lot longer than it did at Kelly Schols. But for some of you, it's running. Some of you are addicted to running. Some of you are addicted to bad relationships. Some of you are addicted to shopping. Or, let me say, some of you know people that have all these issues. How about that? Right. But it's easier, the world focuses on drugs and alcohol because that's the easy one. But we sometimes forget about golf. There's a time I've had an addictive personality my entire life. It just shows up in different ways, shapes, or forms. And so, when I decided I was going to play golf and I had a self-managing company, I played golf 6 days a week, sometimes 27 holes, sometimes 36 holes. I played all the time. And why? Because I wanted to play golf. I wanted to get good at golf. Now I'm super grateful because as I'm now 50 years old, I know golf's not going to fill that for me. I may take up the game again or not. I live in Scottsdale, one of the greatest golf communities in the world. I haven't even played since I've been here. I guess I played once after one of our events, and that's been it. Why? Because I know I'll use that for fun and I'll do it. But a lot of people are like, well, is golf a distraction? Yeah. Is going to the movies a distraction? Yeah. All these things are distractions. That's fine. It's a matter of you really choosing what is it for you. So just make sure that you're not minimizing your own path, your own future, because you go, well, rich people are really bad. Are they? Are they really? Or are you taking some minor snapshots and examples? Because I know a lot of rich people, and I've got a peer group of a lot of very wealthy people that I'm friends with, and I'm blessed to have call friends, and guess what? They're amazing people. My friends are incredible people. And yet they deal with stuff, and they've got relationship challenges. They have children challenges. They have economic challenges. Or, well, you just said they're rich. It doesn't mean they don't have economic challenges, right? It doesn't mean they don't have self-worth challenges. Doesn't mean that that's the reality. You're just going to become more of who you are, and the world's going to test you in different ways, shapes, and forms.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about your book, 6 Dimensions of Change 2.0. Like I said earlier, I've read it. I read your first book. I've done some of the other stuff you've had, 6 Dimensions of Change, Unleash Your Greatest Life, which, that probably changed my life more than anything.
Awesome.
And then I want to talk about something that, I use now coaching, and that's, I talk about, and it came from you, is don't get stuck in the trap of the amateur. And, so many people, they hear something and they, oh yeah, I've heard that before. Oh yeah, I've heard that. I Unleash Your Greatest Life. I've probably listened to that thing more than anybody out there. And for anybody on here that's wondering, it's a 21-day series. It's a CD workshop that Kenny did with Marcus. He was talking about his previous life coach, and probably some of the best personal development work you can do. And I've listened to those CDs over and over and over. Unleash Your Greatest Life 2.0. I just finished reading it, and I read Unleash Your Greatest Life, or 6 Dimensions of Change, quite a few years ago. But reading 2.0, as you and I were talking before we got on, I can't wait for the actual book to get here, because I read it on Kindle, yesterday and today. But I can't wait for the actual book to get here so I can highlight things and go back and start doing that again. Because it's been about 6 years since 4, 5, 6 years since I've done it. But it's staying out of the trap of the amateur and saying, oh yeah, I've read that. Instead, I want to be the master and say, thank you for reminding me.
Well, I think that's a really powerful point. I'm passionate about the trap of the amateur, and basically like what Kelly's saying, ladies and gentlemen, is the amateur hears something and they say, oh yeah, I've heard that before, as Kelly mentioned. And yet the person who's truly seeking excellence, the person who is really looking to be the best they can be, goes, oh yeah, I've heard that before. Thanks for the reminder. And that's one of the reasons I even rewrote the 6 Dimensions of Change and turned it into the 2.0 version that we have available now, is I'm a different person than I was 10 years ago when I wrote this first book. And it was my first book, and I've authored other books in the home service space since I wrote that book. But this was a project for me that I needed to re-speak my truth around the dimensions or clarity, habit, action, never give up, gratitude, and enthusiasm. And when we get clarity about who we really want to be, about what we really truly want to have, when we challenge the habits that we have every day, it's why Kelly and I are talking about our rituals, our daily routines, the different things that you do each and every day. When you see how habit is running your life, and then apply different actions to what those are, and roll in a component of never giving up, because all of us give up so much easier than we should. We have in the United States of America, Canada, and Australia, where most of our listeners are today, it's really, really hard to fail. And what do I mean by that? It's really hard to not have food and water. It's really hard to starve to death in these countries. And so what that means is we give up really easy. It's one of the reasons I'm a huge fan of first generation immigrants to our countries, because they come in and they're not going to give up. They're going to find a way to win because they have an opportunity to find. It's not about equality for them. It's about opportunity for them. Right. And so when we don't give up, like many of us do too early, we're able to keep moving the needle forward and actually build that momentum we were talking about earlier. And then we wrap in that component of gratitude, because that is one of the only things that's missing. We were just talking about miserable rich people. It's one of the reasons that they're miserable, because they don't have a gratitude component in their life. They don't take a moment and wake up and go, wow, I'm really grateful that I have my eyes that I can see today, that I've built relationships, that I get to be on with one of my bros, Kelly, today, and impact people that need to hear it today, maybe have heard it in a different way. Really grateful for those things. That's a component that's missing. And then, when we really look at enthusiasm in life, when's the last time you ran into somebody that was really enthusiastic, really excitable? When you think about that, you remember it. Sometimes it was a server at a restaurant. Sometimes it was what do they call these sign spinners? We have them out here in Arizona. I guess they might have stopped them with the COVID stuff or whatever. Some of these people stand on the side of it, like, they got enthusiasm for their job, and I'm pretty sure they're making minimum wage, right? And it's like, holy cow. But when you show up in life, there's energy speaks to energy. And if I wasn't living the best of my ability at that time, the 6 dimensions of change, Kelly Schols and I never would have connected, because I never would have had the clarity that I wanted to be a public speaker and I wanted to be very good at my craft. I wouldn't have challenged the habits that I was having to overcome. I wouldn't have taken the actions and spoke for free and spoke to nobody countless hundreds of times before I was able to get on that big stage when he met me. I would have given up earlier, and I wouldn't have been grateful for the hard knocks and the challenges, and I wouldn't have been super enthusiastic as a speaker. And because I put those things together, he was drawn to me, and we've been able to create a lifelong brotherhood because of that. And you have that same opportunity in your lives, my friends, where regardless of where you are today, and I don't say this to be, mean or harsh, but I don't care where you are today. I really don't. I don't care of my status or income level or health. I don't care about Kelly's situation or what he's got going on. It doesn't mean that I'm not grateful, and I'm not very pleased and very proud of what I'm doing, where I am, who I'm around. But what really matters to me is, who do I continue to get to become to go to that next level? And as I implement the 6 dimensions of change every single day, I get new clarity. I get to challenge new habits. I get this game of life isn't solved until we're in a box in the front of a room somewhere. And so why not continue to learn and grow while we're here? You're not going to retire and be done. You're going to retire from purpose, and you will be done. Right. And so it's really about these things of just getting engaged in your life, and stop blaming and stop thinking it lies outside of you. And as I say some of these things, I'm like, oh my God, that's cliche, as many times as I've heard it. And that was the trap of the amateur for me. And sometimes we just need to hear it one more time. And it's one of the reasons I said, when I hire coaches, I spend more on my own self-education than anybody I know, because I don't ever want to go into that trap. Half the time I get off the phone with my coach and I'm like, that was pretty good. Okay, cool. But once about every 5 or 6 sessions, it's like, oh my God, did I need that today? And that's worth it to me. Where are you going for that? Where are you listening? Where are you paying attention? Make sure you're engaging in what Kelly's doing here. Make sure you're listening and paying attention to good stuff. Get on my podcast, leadershipinanutshell.com. Get the book. Read Kelly's book if you haven't. If you have, read it again. Make sure you're giving yourself good mental food. It all starts in your mind.
Well, and here's the thing, we all hit a wall, or we fall off, called the wagon, And I've done that, where I'm going along, I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm looking in the mirror, I'm improving, I'm doing things. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take a break. Well, you know what? What's the saying was it Zig Ziglar said? Motivation is like bathing. Needs to be done every day.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, if you want to be the best version of yourself, needs to be done every day. Are you going to miss a day or two? Of course you are.
Absolutely.
But you got to keep going.
It's that more often than not, right? It's definitely, it's about more often than not. And really creating the life of your dreams does exist. It is possible. You can have it. I've left relationships in my life. I've left close family members that have said, you're living a pie in the sky dream. That's not possible. You can't have it all. You can't. Well, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm certainly living it. I'm certainly doing what I want to do with who I want more. Now, does that mean that I don't have, yeah, you can't travel because of COVID. You can't go on site with clients. You can't do certain things. Okay, fine. I'll deal with that. There's not that things don't happen that I wouldn't not choose, but now I get to go, that sucks. What am I going to learn from this so I can become better? Like, okay, well, certain things are going to happen in your life. How are you going to learn from those more often than not?
And that's something I think that it really attracted me to you as well, Kenny. And I talked to Christy about this multiple times is, anytime we're together, we go to dinner, we're out doing something, doesn't matter what we're doing, hiking, anything. You have the sixth sense of everything you do, you look at as a teaching moment or learning moment. And that's something that I don't know that a lot of people can really, it took me, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Because every time I'm with you, we'll be walking down the street and you're over there taking pictures. It's like, and I just look at Christy and go, I wonder what that lesson's going to be. It's something very unique. And I don't know if that's something that if you learn that or is that just something that comes natural?
I think, honestly, I think it came from so much pain and trauma in my life that I was told I was a dumb kid. I was told that I would never amount to anything. I was told that we were us and them. I write about it in the book that, us and them mentality. We're the dumb people that are broke and we don't go on vacation. And there's them that are the smart people that are educated and have nice cars and can go out to eat. And I got so fed up of that. And I knew I wasn't cut out for college. And it's fascinating that meant I was a dumb kid. And now we've piled on zillions of dollars with a Z. That's right. For those of you that are wondering, of debt of higher education. And I'm not against college. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of these guys that says people don't need to go. I'm one of these guys that says, decide what's the next best step for you. And for me, it happens to be learning. And one of my primary purposes, my primary purpose on the planet is to make a positive impact in the lives of others and myself to the best of my ability while learning and growing every day. And when I understood and wrote that as my personal purpose in December of 2000, I've altered it once actually with one of my coaches' help because I didn't used to have "and myself" in it. Catch that. I used to say I exist to make a positive impact in the life of others. And I wasn't involved in the equation. And then I had to put myself in the equation and go, okay, and myself, while becoming the best version of myself every day by learning and growing. And so if I learn and grow every day, it's part of my purpose. And that's why I believe I'm going to live a long, long time. I destroyed my body for many years with different chemicals and different things like that. I believe in the brain, and I believe if I haven't already completely rewired my brain, it will be happening over the next several years, as I believe it's completely done. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that, I am wired that way, Kelly, but it didn't just happen. I'm always looking. I believe in the reticular activating system. It's a little part of our brain that's back here in the kind of the upper cortex in the back that operates like a Google search field. And I feel like I walk around the world today as my own version of Google. And between my ears, as I'm looking at the world, is my search engine. And as I look at things and I see different things, I posted it on the Kenny Chapman fan page today on Facebook. I posted a picture. I accidentally picked up the wrong health bar on the Lara bars or whatever. I can't stand pumpkin stuff. And I accidentally grabbed one that's Christy. She loves pumpkin stuff. I don't know why, but I grabbed one to head to the office early this morning, and I got here. I was ready for my snack mid-morning and went, man, it's the same color package, but this dang thing's pumpkin. And I posted it on my page, and I said, well, I wonder what the lesson is for me here. And I literally, to Kelly's point, I did that today when I went. In the past, I would have thrown it across the room and been pissed that Christy likes pumpkin and all this different, and instead I'm like, I grabbed the wrong health bar. What can I learn from this? Maybe I need to slow down a little bit more when I was having a big day and I had an early meeting that I was getting here and being ready. maybe I need to take a moment more. Maybe I wasn't as conscious as I could have been as I was getting ready this morning. And I'm just looking for that. And call me crazy, but I believe we're here to learn. And as soon as we've learned what we came to learn on this version of this life on this planet, then we're going to tap out. And that's why I'm not mad at my dad. He got himself killed way too young and way too early in his children's lives, many people would say. I don't believe that. I believe that he left the planet at the right time in the right way, because that was his path. And my dad left home at 17 years old from rural Illinois and hitchhiked his way across the United States to lie about his age and join the Marine Corps before he was legal. I don't know what kind of pain my dad was running from. I don't know what he dealt with. Who am I to judge that, ladies and gentlemen? And so for me, I could look and go, Dad was murdered. Poor me, terrible life, terrible people. The world's a big, bad, scary place. Or I can look at it and go, no way, I wouldn't have chose it. But with it, there's massive gifts. There's massive opportunity. And even if it's sharing with some of you on the line that, hey, it's okay. Life is going to go on. Whether Dad ends up in a challenging situation, whether Kelly has a spouse that passes on, whether we have different economic challenge, whether I grab the wrong damn health bar, things are going to happen. And what are we going to learn from them? Because if I'm looking for lessons, then I can't lose.
Well, and I can tell you right now, if you're a Kenny follower, he'll have a lesson on that health bar in the next week for everybody else, not just for himself. Right?
There you go. That's what it's about, baby. I love it.
Something else I want to talk about for a moment, and we're into it quite a ways. We said we didn't know what was going to happen, how long it was going to go. So
there you go.
For those of you that are still listening and on here, thank you. But, we talked about your transformation and things you've been through in the last, 8-10 years, the changes you've made. But I know somebody that made a major, major impact in your life. And I had the pleasure of watching him speak one time. And that was Shawn Stevenson.
Mm-hmm.
If you would, talk a little bit about Shawn and the impact that he made in your life.
Yeah. So Shawn Stevenson, as you mentioned, was just one of the angels in my life. He was brought into my life at a very specific time for a very specific reason. And I truly do believe that that he tapped out after his work with me was done. And some people call that very selfish. His wife, Mindy, and I are still very dear friends, and she believes in the same concept, not necessarily for me, but for her as well. Like if many people say, oh, I believe everything happens for a reason. And then they want to argue with everything that happens. Yeah. And go, well, wait a minute. You either do or you don't. And it's okay if you don't, but just don't create pain for yourself by saying you do. And Shawn had a bone disease from birth that he was never able to walk. He wasn't supposed to live for 1 year. Then he wasn't supposed to live until he was 5. And then he just kept on going. And he became an international speaker. He got a doctorate. He began doing a lot of, mental work with people. And he never walked a day in his life. But I called him a 3-foot giant. Tony Robbins actually one time called Shawn. They shared the stage one time and called Shawn a 3-foot giant. It's probably where I picked that up. And Shawn was a guy, as you know from seeing him speak, that he's this little tiny human specimen, and is like he's deformed, and his face is deformed, and his arms are all messed up and all this type of stuff. And as a child, and when he would sneeze, he would break ribs, and he had hundreds of broken bones in his body. And this poor guy was, we've all met people similar to this, where you're just like, I would go over to Shawn's house and hang with him for an afternoon, and I would walk out and just go. And by the way, I just said I would walk out. Just that right there says I don't have any problems compared to Shawn. And he was just one of the happiest, most brilliant souls. And I was very blessed because I got to see the inside, and I got to know Shawn at a very personal level. And we shared a lot of very intimate conversations and deep conversations. And there was pain in Shawn's life. And he wasn't just everything all happy-go-lucky, everything all perfect all the time. And I think too often we do that with our mentors. And I think one of the reasons Kelly and I are still so close is we've gotten very close, and we've seen each other at their worst over the last decade, and we've seen each other at their best. But too often when you see mentors and you see people on TV, you don't see their baggage, and you don't see them without the Instagram filter on, and you don't see certain things. And so one of the reasons I'm so transparent as a speaker and why I had to write 2.0 version is because things have changed and people need to know. And so Shawn taught me how to embrace myself more and how to love myself more. And, you know, this little guy that would just, you know, he would, and I don't even know if we have a time limit,
tell the story.
I got to tell
the car.
It's just it's so fun. I happen to drive a Porsche Cayenne hybrid so it's super fast off the line because it's got a electronic charge to it or whatever. And Shawn loved cars. And so I would pick him up for coffee. First time he ever rode in my car. And we go and I pick him up. And here's another thing about transparency, my friends, is when I knew Shawn at a few events and I was in a coaching program with him. And so we got to know each other a little bit. And then as we became better friends, I was in a different coaching program with his wife. And his wife actually is one of the reasons that I ended up selling my previous service business. I was at a coaching program with her and was like, I was working through some stuff and she's like, your head's not there, your heart's not there. Why are you still doing it? And went, well, hang on, wait a minute. And literally 27 days later, we were under contract to make that disappear for both of us. That it was a time thing. And so nonetheless, you know, I got to know Shawn a little bit better, but I had never had a deep, close relationship with somebody that was at a level of handicap as him. I had a quadriplegic uncle when I was younger and that was hurt in a water skiing accident and different things. But Shawn, like you know, you had to mush up his food for him. He couldn't eat whole food, like all a really challenged situation. So I get to his house and I go in and I'm like, okay, I've never done this before, dude. Here's the deal. I've never had a friend like you, so I don't know what to do. And he's like, cool. I've never had a friend like you either. And if I need help, I'll ask for it. And I went, okay, cool. He's like, all right, then we're going to be good. And just from there, we connected at a level because Shawn was usually around people that wouldn't call him out and be around him and tell him the truth. And I went, I don't know how it is to be you. I'm not going to try. You tell me what you need. And so I put the wheelchair in the car and I get him picked up and set in the seat. And you got to redo the seat belt so it doesn't choke him off, you know. And so here he is sitting and he can't see over the dash because I'm in an SUV and he's sitting there and he's just looking up at me. And he's looking up at me and I'm just kind of looking at him and we're just getting to know each other. And I'm driving along. He's like, get on it. So I'm like, well, hang on, brother. So I smash it and it throws him back in the seat. And he's like, yeah. You know, and he's loving it. And then he was very intellectual and he would start with your name. And he said, Kenny, let me ask you a question. I said, yeah, Shawn, what is it? And we're driving along and he goes, what's the most amount of money you've ever made in a year? And I was like, I'm like, what the heck? I mean, when nobody talks about money like that, like, what the, you know? And so I'm just kind of like, well, that was very direct. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm like, what the heck? And I throw him a number. I'm like, oh, you know, I've made this much. And he goes, it must really suck that I've made more money than you in a year and I can walk. And he said, and you can walk. And I was like, I looked down at him. I'm like, what? He's like, it does. It really pisses you off that I make more money than you have. And yet you can walk. That really, and I'm just like, literally this dude saying that. And I'm like, huh. And I'm driving and I'm like, I'm like, wow, this dude's tripping me out. And then he goes, Kenny, you know what I'm doing right now? And I'm like, well, you're about to get slapped is what you're doing. You know, like quickly we forget about people's challenges when they're challenging us. Right. And he goes, you know what I'm doing right now? And I said, what's that, Shawn? He said, I'm applying to the competitive part of your brain. And it really pisses you off that I make more money than you, doesn't it? And I can't walk. And I'm like, All right, pal. And, and literally one of our first intimate relations together, of driving that car and spending that time together. And we got really close really fast. And so that was just his heart and where he was. And that's one of those reasons I think he was here to move me very quickly in a very short period of time, because I was ready for it. I was looking for it with him. And it's one of the he's a guy that on the last day of his life, I was in Basalt, Colorado, outside of Aspen, on my annual Labor Day trip, and he passed away on 8/28 of 18. And last year on the 28th of August, we traded text videos. And I had shot him a video and I showed him the area. I was right on the Frying Pan River, and I shot him this video and I said, man, dude, this is super beautiful. I can't, you'd love it here. I can't wait till I get back to Phoenix area and we get to connect and this and that. And he sent me back a video. Another thing I want everybody to take away. And I don't even know, I could probably pull it up and play it. But so he sent me this video back, and at the end of it, he said, I love you, brother. And I texted him back and I said, I love you too, bro. And 4 hours later, he fell out of his wheelchair. And about 12 hours later, he took his last breath. And the reason that I think it's important that I tell that, and some of you are going, wow, Kelly, you brought this dude on and it went dark quick. It's like, here's the point, my friends. I'm emotional because I'm passionate, and I know Shawn tapped out at the right time. He was in tremendous pain, like physical pain. I can't imagine he lived 40 years on this planet in that cage of a body that he was in. And so, but the way that it happened so quickly was very, very interesting. And so he was, Joe Polish was there. Mindy, his wife, was there. A couple other friends were there. I was still in Colorado, so I wasn't able to get back in time. And he was coming in and out of consciousness. And one of the things I want everybody to know about Shawn, and know for your own life, is as he was struggling and he was in massive pain, he came out and he looked up at Joe and Mindy and he said, this is not happening to me. This is happening for me. And then he was gone. And I want you to think about that for a moment. With everything that Kelly and I have shared with you today so far openly, as we open our hearts and our minds and our souls to you, and all we're doing is opening up a little compartment in your own for you to look inside. This isn't about Shawn Stevenson. It's not about Kelly Schols. It's not about Kenny Chapman. It's not about my parents, his parents, previous relationships, businesses. This is about you on the line. And the reason I share something like that is because you have the Shawns in your life. You have the pain in your life. You have the trauma, and you question God. You question the world. You question the universe. You question everything about it. And Shawn, at a time like that, when his crazy ass disease isn't even what got him, he fell out of it. He had a new wheelchair that he was testing out and fell out of it and hit his head. And that's what ended up taking his life. That's one of the reasons I know it was his time. He was called to his next level. He graduated. He did what he came to do. And part of that was change my life forever and help me continue on his legacy. He was here to rid the world of insecurity, was Shawn's purpose. Pretty big purpose, you might agree, right? Rid the world of insecurity. And at one conversation, one story at a time. And so thank you for bringing that up, Kelly, because it's powerful when somebody's taking their last breath at only 40 years old and says, this is not happening to me, this is happening for me. What in your own lives has happened to you that maybe has happened for you? When Kelly was talking about defining moments earlier today, and he said, some of those things, when I look at the challenges that I had, the things that I went, how am I ever going to get through these? Those happened for me. Perhaps a lawsuit happened for him. Perhaps the death that nobody can explain, that was way too early, way too young, happened for him and his girls. Maybe the struggles of different things in his life. Maybe the addictions early on happened for him. He knows he's the only reason he's alive with us here today is because he kicked it early. And so, what about you at home as you're listening to this, whether you're on with us live now or you're listening to this at some time in the future? What are the things in your own life that you're labeling maybe incorrectly? And I say incorrectly, maybe by that, I mean, maybe you're not accepting the gift. I could be really mad at the world. I just had become really close with Shawn within, I mean, heck, it was only about 8 months that I was really close with him. It was a little less than a year, maybe right at a year. And he quickly became, as you mentioned, Kelly, I mean, one of my very, very closest mentors, friends. I did deep work with him. He got in my head and helped me. He's one of the reasons I'm sober today. And I think that I could be mad at the world, or I could be super blessed that I had an opportunity to spend the time that I had with him. And I think that's true about everybody on the line and everything that you're dealing with. What if you're dealing with it for a reason? What if the pandemic happened for you as an opportunity for you to learn? What if the election doesn't go your way and it happens for you so you can learn and become different and better adjusted? What if your economic situation you're currently in is happening for you? What about the fact you got laid off and you're going, Kenny, you can't tell me that because I just got laid off. What if you got laid off and that happened for you because you were in a job you were frustrated about, hitting snooze on the alarm because you didn't want to get up and go anyway, and now there's a space? And what if the bankruptcy that you're about to go through is happening for you? What if all of these health issues that have manifested in your life have happened for you? What about that, my friends? I think there's a huge opportunity here, Kelly.
I think there is. Wow. I mean, we've covered a lot. We've covered a lot.
We
So,
have covered a lot.
yeah. And, I would love to keep going. I think we know we could go for 2-3 more hours, but I think we need to cut it off here. I definitely want to have you on again. Thank you for opening up, sharing, giving your wisdom. Thank you for all you've done for me in my life. I am truly, truly grateful.
Likewise, brother. Likewise. Feelings mutual.
Tell us, how can people get a hold of Kenny Chapman?
Super easy. Just KennyChapman.com. Easiest way is just go to KennyChapman.com. I've got my morning ritual on there for you. You can just download it. You can get access to my book there, and hit the contact us if you want more explanation about anything that we've talked about. When like we talk about meditation or any of that, just shoot me a message in the contact us. Reach out to Kelly. Obviously, he knows how to get a hold of me. Anything I can do, it is part of my purpose. It's what I'm here to do and execute. And you've done yourself a solid, ladies and gentlemen, by spending this time with Kelly. I'm proud of you, brother. I'm honored to be here with you. I'm honored to take this walk in life side by side. Our paths continue to intersect, and we're running the relay race in each other's lane, sometimes in the same lane, running side by side, handing the baton back and forth. And I told my team that's here in the office today, I'm like, I'm about to go get interviewed by Kelly, and what an awesome turn of events and awesome evolution process. And last thing I said before I walked in, I said, I'm going to go learn some stuff, because every time I'm around you, I learn, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with your listeners today, bro.
Yeah, thanks. I truly appreciate it. And anybody on here, if you have not been involved or seen any of Kenny's stuff, do yourselves a favor. Go on to his website, get involved, get his book, Six Dimensions of Change 2.0. Is that available on?
Yeah, it's on all your major ones. If you just go to KennyChapman.com, it's right on the homepage. And the podcast too. My podcast is very short. We've worn you out here today for a long session, but my podcast is only 10-minute episodes where I just take a concept, and as Kelly said, I learn lessons in life, and then I just do 10-minute snippets of sharing.
Well, and I'll tell you on the podcast, it's called Leadership in a Nutshell. How to crack the code. What is it?
Of the driven mind.
Of the driven mind. If you don't think you have a driven mind, it doesn't matter. You need to listen to his podcast. I listened to every one of them. I'm back listening to them the second time. It's just like Unleash Your Greatest Life that he put out years ago with Marcus. I listen to that over and over and over. I want to be the master. I want to continually learn. I want to continually grow. And some of the stuff Kenny's put out is some of the best I've ever seen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So next month, I'll be speaking with Mandy Gill. Mandy's an international known keynote speaker and health expert. She's going to be talking about some of the struggles she had when she was younger. So that's for next month. So thank you for listening to the episode of Never Buy the Book. Please share it with anybody you know. And don't forget to subscribe through your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And as we close today, remember, if you're not doing it by the book, it just might mean you're on to something great. Until next time, be great. Thanks, Kenny.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, everybody.